Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lesser Known but Awesome Heroes. And today, I'm going to be talking about the female Avenger known as Tigra. And I have a lot of information to cover, guys, so let's hop to it. Greer Grant Nelson debuted as the Chicago crime fighter The Cat. And her first appearance was in The Cat #1 in November of 1972, and she was created by Linda Fite and Marie Sorvin. I have no idea if these names are correct, but don't really have time to dawdle. She was the recipient of two separate experiments, or shall we say scenarios, with superpowers. One was mystical when a humanoid group of cat people had magically transformed her into the Tigra of their legends. And the other one was that when she first debuted as the Cat, she was the recipient of an experiment or a psychological conditioning program that enabled a human being to reach his or her physical and mental potential. However, a man named Michael Donoblin, who was a Hydra agent, apparently had sabotaged the lab after he realized that the doctor was not going to basically do Hydra's bidding and create the perfect army of soldiers. However, Greer would then try to find this man and would basically when she went to interrogate him, he committed suicide. What also makes this very interesting is that later the doctor is found out to have brain damage. However, this was all a ruse, as the doctor, who was part of the cat people, was captured by Hydra, and when Greer, who was the cat at this time, had apparently found Hydra but nearly died as she was shot with a gun containing alpha radiation. And the cat people gave her a mystical cat head totem after she was transformed into Tigra that would allow her at will to switch between her feline and human forms. However, she became so accustomed to her feline form that she rarely made the change to being human. And she would later, in her various careers, be a private investigator, a cop, an adventurer, a model, many different things. And she would also be part of many groups: the Avengers Academy, the New Warriors, the Battalion, the Initiative, the Lady Liberators, the Main Avengers Group, the West Coast Avengers, and the Fantastic Four are pretty much the majority. Yeah, Greer has been in quite a few. She's had her little, kitty paws within quite a few groups in the Marvel Universe. And she would also throughout her short-stinted solo career, and in the comic book universe, her solo run, she would face many different villains. She would actually go up against the Rat Pack, Spider-Man villain. She'd go off against Sergei Kravinoff, aka Kraven the Hunter. She would also face Tobar, and she would also actually face the Super Skrull. And she would work alongside Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and the character of Red Wolf. And Moondragon would basically convince her to join the Avengers. And she would do really great against the Molecule Man, but would decide to resign. And when she joined Hawkeye's West Coast Avengers, she would have a fling with both Hank Pym and Wonder Man at the exact same time. And then she would develop a cat-like schizophrenia to where her human side was being beat out by the cat side. So she would go to the cat people, who would later be revealed as demonic entities that were holding on to a spirit holding on to a spirit for Mephisto, and that they wanted Greer to kill this enemy of theirs. And in refusing to do so, her cat soul, the thing that made her Tigra, was taken out of her. However, she would later don, her original cat outfit, which was given by Hellcat, and she would lead the Avengers into the dimension that the cat people resided in, and would pretty much single-handedly defeat their champion, get her cat soul, and then eventually she would actually, for a short time, retain her human intelligence and become a much more formidable fighter. However, later on, however, this would not last, as the cat side of her would come back, and she would actually start to physically transform into that of a predatory cat. She was even shown hunting mice. And she was forced, and unfortunately Hank Pym was forced to use his Pym particles to basically shrink her to the size of a human house cat and hold her hostage until basically they found a cure for her condition. She would later be cured, and she would later go through many, many different situations. And And eventually, however, Tobar, one of her archenemies, would eventually take the cat's soul and would be reverted to a mere cat. However, Tigra was allowed to be in her superhuman form, but she still retained her human personality. And she would eventually regain the totem after many fights with Tobar, who had become the leader of the cat people. And she would eventually, of course, be empowered again. And and she would go through many different other adventures. However, she would, of course, however, join, Iron Man's side during the Marvel Civil War. And she would try to implant herself as a mole within Captain America's resistance group. However, of course, Cap being Cap, you can't really fool him. She was mainly her presence there was used to Cap's advantage to feed Iron Man disinformation. And she would later, during the Skrull invasion, form a relationship with Hank Pym again, who was Yellow Jacket. However, this would be revealed that it was not really the real Hank Pym, but that it was a Skrull imposter. And 2 months after becoming impregnated by the Skrull imposter, she gave birth to a werecat, to a son who was also a werecat named William. And when the real Hank Pym came back, and when she was asked to join the Avengers Academy, at the time Hank was Wasp, she asked Hank if he could do a genetic test on William, and it is shockingly found out that William had no trace of Skrull DNA, but that he had fully human DNA. However, the DNA belonged to Hank. And Hank actually theorized that the Skrull copied him not just in appearance, but in every detail and mannerism, but also on a genetic level. And Greer basically asked Hank, if anything ever happened to her, if he would, father and take care of William. And take a few minutes here to basically describe this. Now, this to me, I actually like Greer. I mean, after reading all this stuff and seeing all the appearances with her, I mean, she's been in she's been in that Avengers United They Stand cartoon. She's been in the Marvel Adventures books. Greer is actually a great female supporting character in Marvel's universe, but at the same time, she's one of those characters that, she could really hold her own if given a solo series. And the fact that they add in William, the fact that they make her a single mom on top of being a superheroine, adds a really great layer to Greer's character. And I feel kind of a little disappointed by the fact that, Tigra's not really much like Miss Marvel and much like Spider-Woman and many other female heroes, she's sadly a character that I sometimes feel is very underrated and not really used to her full potential. Because, I mean, this woman has, like, animal keen like senses. She could be a great tracker, a great scout for like for any Avengers team. She's very agile, very nimble. She's got cat-like claws. I mean, Greer basically is the perfect superheroine, minus of course her outfit, but we're not going to get into that. But anyway, guys, that is it for Tigra. Probably, arguably, one of Marvel's cooler female superheroes. However, not really used, in my opinion, for the potential that she has, and that makes her very lesser known. But no doubt she is one of the more awesome of Marvel's superheroes.